This free step-by-step video comes to you directly from Haynes, creators of the world's best repair manuals. Fix your car or truck the right way with our accurate and reliable information at your side. You can complete more than 200 jobs on this vehicle when you purchase the complete online manual at Haynes.com.
Front drive axle, two-wheel drive models. Open the door and pull the hood release lever located on the driver's side kick panel. Slide the hood safety latch to the left, then raise the hood upwards and place the hood prop into the hole on the hood. Chock the rear wheels to prevent the vehicle from rolling. Loosen the front wheel lug nuts. Place a floor jack under the front frame rail. Raise the front of the vehicle, then support it with a jack stand placed under the frame rail. Remove the front wheel lug nuts and remove the wheels. Place a punch into the brake rotor vent and rotate the punch against the brake caliper. Using a socket and long breaker bar, loosen the drive axle hub nut, then remove the drive axle hub nut and punch. Spray some penetrating oil onto the nut of the lower ball joint and wipe any excess off. Using a large wrench, break the ball joint nut free. Counter-hold the ball joint stud with a wrench and continue loosening the ball joint nut. Once the nut gets reached to the end of the stud, use a pry bar to push the lower control arm downwards and place a pair of locking pliers between the ball joint and the steering knuckle, and remove the nut. Remove the pair of locking pliers between the ball joint and the steering knuckle, and allow the control arm to return to its normal position. Place the pry bar into the opening on the lower control arm and pry downwards while pulling the steering knuckle off of the ball joint. Using a punch and hammer, drive the drive axle inwards to separate it from the hub. Swing the knuckle hub assembly out away from the vehicle while pulling the end of the drive axle out from the hub. Use a length of wire to secure the outer end of the drive axle to avoid unnecessary strain on the inner CV joint. Pry the inner CV joint out of the transaxle using a large screwdriver or pry bar positioned between the transaxle and the CV joint housing. Be careful not to damage the differential seal. Remove the wire to securing the outer end of the drive axle and carefully pull the drive axle out from the transaxle and vehicle. Pry the old spring clip from the inner end of the drive axle on the left side or outer end of the intermediate shaft on the right side, and install a new one using reverse snap ring pliers. Lubricate the differential or intermediate shaft seal with multi-purpose grease. Lubricate the end of the drive axle with multi-purpose grease. Position the spring clip with the opening facing down. This will ease insertion of the drive axle and prevent damage to the clip. Push the spleened end of the inner CV joint into the differential side gear and make sure the spring clip locks in its groove. Check that the spring clip has engaged by tugging outward on the inboard CV joint housing. Apply a light coat of multi-purpose grease to the outer CV joint spleens, pull out on the steering knuckle assembly, and install the stub axle into the hub. Pry downwards on the lower control arm and reconnect the control arm to the steering knuckle. Place the pry bar into the opening on the lower control arm and pry downwards while installing the ball joint nut. Tighten the ball joint nut to the specified torque setting. Install the new drive axle hub nut. With the punch inserted into the disc to keep the drive axle from turning, tighten the drive axle hub nut to the specified torque setting. Then, remove the punch from the brake rotor vent. Remove the air filter housing bolts. Disconnect the MAF sensor. Then loosen the air filter housing clamp to resonator clamp. Remove the air filter housing from the vehicle and reposition it sideways. Then tighten the intake duct clamp and connect the MAF sensor electrical connector. Measure the amount of transaxle fluid lost. If any, then remove the dipstick and insert a funnel into the dipstick tube. Add the measured transaxle lubricant fluid into the dipstick tube. With the engine still running, remove the transmission check fill cap and dipstick from the left side of the transmission and wipe off the dipstick with a clean rag. Insert the dipstick and tighten the cap. Then loosen the cap and withdraw it again to note the fluid level. When the transmission is at normal operating temperature, the fluid level should be within the dotted range marked B on the dipstick. The cross-hatched range marked A is only for checking the level when the transmission is cold. When the fluid level is correct and proper operation is confirmed, install the air filter housing, tightening the clamp and fasteners securely, and reconnecting the MAF sensor electrical connector. Install the wheels and lug nuts. Use the floor jack to raise the vehicle, remove the jack stand, and lower the vehicle to the ground. Tighten the wheel lug nuts to the specified torque setting.